Hello, fifth graders. Last week we read that our delegates at the Constitutional Convention finally drafted the Constitution, and now they were sending it out to the 13 states to be ratified. But there was a problem, remember? There was no Bill of Rights. Well, so let's read on and see what the states do about that and if they ratified the Constitution. I'm starting on page 40. Federalists tried to reassure them once the government was formed. They pointed out the Constitution could easily be amended to include those rights that they wanted. All they had to do was recommend improvements and then go ahead and ratify. If they didn't, they'd end up with neither a government nor a Bill of Rights. Delaware started off the state conventions and on December 7th was the first to ratify the Constitution. Its vote was unanimous, as was New Jersey's on December 18th and Georgia's on January 2nd, 1788. Other states had a harder time reaching an agreement. Pennsylvania ratified on December 12th with a vote of 46 to 23. Connecticut on January 9th with a vote of 128 to 40. Massachusetts argued for a month, and although it finally ratified on February 6, the vote was close, 187 to 168. Maryland came along on April 28, 63 to 11, and South Carolina on May 23, 149 to 73. On June 21st, New Hampshire was the 9th state to ratify the Constitution, 57 to 47. And with this vote, the United States of America officially became a nation. Page 41. But people were still anxious for the big states to join so that the new nation would seem impressive. Virginia was an important state, but if Patrick Henry had his way, it would never have joined. It would have never have joined. He spoke against the Constitution for 2 weeks, once giving 8 speeches in one day, once speaking all day long. But on June 26, the Virginia Convention did ratify, 89 to 79. A month later, on July 26, New York, which had never been enthusiastic, also voted yes, 30 to 27. North Carolina, however, voted no, and Rhode Island didn't even bother to hold a convention. When they saw the results of the other elections, they accused the rest of the country of seceding from them. Eventually, they changed their minds. North Carolina joined the Union in November 1789 and Rhode Island in May 1790. Page 42. But Philadelphia couldn't wait for all the states to come into the Union before celebrating. As soon as Virginia had ratified, Philadelphia got ready for a big 4th of July celebration. Indeed, the grand procession that marched through the city from 8 in the morning until 6 in the evening was so grand, it was a wonder that there were enough people left over to watch. Leading the parade was a herald with a trumpet proclaiming the new age. Riders on horseback carried banners that celebrated everything and every person worth celebrating. A float made to look like a giant blue eagle rolled up the cobblestone streets, followed by an enormous framed Constitution, propped up in a carriage pulled by 6 white horses. Page 43. A fancy building with 13 columns representing the new nation was pulled in a vehicle drawn by 10 white horses. Of course there was music. High-stepping bands beating and blowing kept the town tapping to their tunes. And people? 450 architects and carpenters marched in the procession. There were sawmakers and file cutters, farmers with their 4-ox plows, weavers, tailors, goldsmiths, gunsmiths, brickmakers, clockmakers, boat builders, coopers, bakers, corset makers, and preachers. The federal ship Union, mounted with 20 guns, brought up the rear of the procession, and everyone ended up at a picnic spread out for 17,000 people. Page 44. The country may have kicked and screamed its way into becoming a nation, but once there, it's celebrated. Bells pealed and cannon roared as state after state acknowledged that the Constitution they had adopted was now the supreme law of the land. Two of America's most important statesmen, however, were not in the country during any of the constitutional proceedings. John Adams, who would be our second president, was in England, serving as our ambassador. Thomas Jefferson, who would be our third president, was our ambassador to France. When John Adams, just arriving in Boston in 1788, heard the news that the Constitution had been adopted, he wrote to Jefferson. As we say at sea, he wrote, "Huzzah for the New World, and farewell to the old one." And Thomas Jefferson, once he felt satisfied that a Bill of Rights would be included, called the new Constitution unquestionably the wisest ever yet presented to men. The end.